Very much. Well, some on Capitol Hill might have a thing or two to say about how everything should have been handled, including members of the House Financial Services Committee. We're joined right now by Massachusetts Congressman Barney Frank. He's the chairman of that committee. Also on the committee, McCotter of Michigan, and he's a Republican. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Representative Frank, let's start with you. Tell me about this clause, this business about a clause making it into a bill, maybe because somebody at Treasury told Senator Dodd. What do you know about this, and what do you think about it?
Well, I think we ought to repeal it. I was not party to these conversations. The Financial Services Committee was not involved in the recovery bill, except we had some things to say about housing, and we also made it easier for banks to pay the money back under the TARP program, which I thought was very important, so they can't now complain that we're forcing things on that they don't like. But this was not something that we had gotten into, but I think the best way to deal with this now is to repeal it. And so since this would now be within the jurisdiction of the committee, it's my intention to simply undo that particular exemption and put it back to where we would have been without it.
Congressman McCotter, would you support that?
Oh, absolutely. I think the chairman hit the nail on the head. This was an amendment that was done in the dead of night. He didn't do this. Members of our committee didn't do this, and I think none of us would have supported it. And now the call to repeal it by Chairman Frank and others, I think you will have strong bipartisan support. But it still leaves hanging out there who made the decision not to allow the Wyden Snow amendment to stay in the stimulus bill.
That was an amendment that would have,
the
Wyden Snow amendment would have actually very explicitly not allowed bonuses like this to be paid. Absolutely. And I think, again, it goes back to the question of who made that determination. It clearly wasn't Chairman Frank. It wasn't members of our committee. Who do you think, Chairman Frank, who made that decision?
I don't know. I'm glad you clarified, because some of the viewers might think that the Wyden Snow amendment had to do with ski trails. And we should be clear that that was not what it was. I do not know. As I said, I was engaged on the with regard to the recovery plan. One of the things that I said was, and there's a distinction. When the Federal Reserve told us, didn't ask us, that they were giving a loan to AIG back in September, we had no involvement. A couple of days later, when they asked us to pass the legislation the Treasury did to create the TARP program, we immediately raised the question of restraints on compensation. Now, they weren't always done right, but I would stress that distinction. The Federal Reserve on its own lent the money under a statute that dates from 1932. When we got into the TARP program, we immediately got into a discussion. Frank, as Secretary of the Treasury, Mr. Paulson was reluctant, but he ran into bipartisan arguments that this had to be done. So what we then did was, in the TARP program, remove any argument from the recipients that they couldn't give the money back, and we had that. I was not involved in these conversations, so I can't tell you who did it.
Representative McCotter, what do you think of this business of repeal of a tax on these bonuses?
Well, I think, unfortunately, we're acting in a crisis situation. I think that there are better ways to do it. But again, in fairness to the people who did vote for it, the people who voted for the stimulus did not know that that provision was in there to allow the AIG bonuses.
How does that happen, though? How does that happen? I mean, I know it's a big bill, and I know these things go quickly, but don't you have staff that says, hey, something's in here that wasn't in here yesterday?
Well, again, as a Republican, we had begged the majority to allow time to read the bill, because it's a disadvantage not only to the minority, but to the members of the majority who want to know what's in the bill. And so what happened, Allie, is as it comes down the pike, they voted for something that they never would have voted for if they knew it was in there. They'd have had it taken out. Chairman Frank has made that clear. And so what happens is they try to respond as quickly as they can to show that they did not want to vote for that. And sometimes I think they go the wrong route to try to undo damage.
Can I make 2 points? One, I continue to believe that the best way for us to deal with these bonuses that were very unjustifiably given at AIG. You know, retention bonuses, as they are being described, are a form of extortion. What we're told is these were people who had worked at the company, had specific knowledge about things that the company had done that needed to be undone, and they had to be bribed not to leave, in effect, with the combination to the safe or the antidote to the poison. And I have no hesitation in trying to cancel that out. But I think a better way to do it would be for us as the owner. Because of what the Federal Reserve began last September, the federal government now owns about 80% of the company. The best way to do this, so you're not setting precedents about interfering with other contracts or making people nervous about the tax system, would simply to assert our rights as the owner of the company to go to court and say, yes, there was a contract, but you performed so badly, and that is such an extortionate contract that we want it canceled. And I am still pressing the administration to do that. I think that is the best chance of winning, of getting the bonuses canceled, and of not setting any bad precedents.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. An interesting bipartisan discussion, an approach, the same approach by both of you, at least, to deal with this one particular issue. Well, could someone end up paying a big political price for the AIG controversy? And if so, who? The president?